Yosemite?
Yep.
The valley. Well, Yosemite, I guess, is the Mecca for climbing. Like kind of the place every climber dream about.
As a climber, when I first came to Yosemite, it felt like kind of coming to the center of the universe, you know? It was like Mecca or whatnot.
I grew up climbing in Yosemite. I've always been struck by how massive it is and how much rock there is, and it just elevates everything.
I think it's just so beautiful. I remember when we drove the first time into the valley, it was mind-blowing to see all those walls.
I think it has so much to offer. Like you can go bouldering, trad climbing, big wall climbing, just hiking if you want. It's like paradise.
It just feels like this area of endless opportunity for climbers in every capacity, whether it's bouldering or single pitch or multi-pitch or multi-day stuff. It pretty much is the full scope of climbing.
Everything that is something is done in Yosemite, you know? It just feels like this is kind of where standards are set and then barriers are broken.
Yosemite is also the place where I basically started to get into big wall climbing, so it's also a really special place in my heart. And for me it was interesting not just try some of the harder lines, but also try to climb on some easier and historical lines. And if you think that most of them were climbed like in the 80s or something like that, with like way less like good gear compared to nowadays, it's kind of mind-blowing. So the goal for this trip was to try meltdown or magic line. Then at the end, because of the weather, we decided to focus on meltdown. For me, it's a really special line, I would say, because I remember when I first saw the video of Beth's like impressive first ascent in 2008. At the time, I wasn't a trad climber, and it just seemed something completely desperate to me.
It was a pretty incredible achievement at that time. There were very, very few trad climbs that were even suggested to be at that level.
Meltdown is a very special route. It's extremely hard, I think. It's crazy what Beth Roden did so many years ago. It's, I think, still one of the hardest trad climbs.
I remember thinking that it was just desperate and thin and heinous, and I grew up climbing in Yosemite, and so I kind of knew the style pretty well, but that one looked to be a big departure from anything else that had been done in the valley at the time.
I don't know, it just is pretty simple, right? It's just this crack through a wall in a beautiful place, and it's basically in this jumble of a creek bed, and there's a slab right behind it, and then a small platform that the pool doesn't quite go up onto, and then that's where the crack starts.
I think It's crazy that somehow a climb in the middle of one of the most famous places for trad climbing had to wait for like 10 years to get the second ascent, which was done by Carlo Traversi in 2018.
People thought that it didn't get much attention, but it actually got more attention than people talked about. It's been tried by a lot of people. You know, there's a long list of accomplished trad climbers that have, you know, put a little bit of work into it, or at least like attempted it over the years.
I mean, honestly, like I would have never guessed it, just because I'm not the strongest climber, and so I don't know why, it didn't get repeated for so long.
There were stories of top climbers who have tried it. Like there were stories of people saying that it was impossible if you had like bigger fingers compared to Beth. It was all about like thin finger locks, and actually it's really not like that. It's just like super powerful laybacking on bad footholds. So really like chapeau Beth for what you did like in 2008.
Meltdown's for sure, I think, one of the most unique trad climbs out there, especially for the valley just because of how bouldery it is. And it's a crack, but it doesn't really climb like a crack.
It's definitely more powerful and it's more European style of climbing, so you really have to crimp and do hard layback moves.
This one's definitely, you need to know how to crack climb, but a lot of the time it's much more powerful than a lot of the other climbs that I encountered.
And so you're using some crack techniques, but you're not really jamming much. It's kind of this cool blend of like bouldery power, lie-back technique, but then a little bit of crack climbing and with the gear and stuff too mixed in.
Also, it's just like the feet are so bad, so it's a lot on your hands and your arms.
There are really bad slippery feet. It's a bit washed from the water. It's super hard to just stay on the wall for multiple moves. And that makes it also very bumpy, and you can fall off, I think, on every single move until the very last.
Vale, derecha.
Kann niemand stehen auf den Scheißtritt. Ich merke gar nichts, ich habe voll kalte Finger. The route is actually quite short, like the first part is not so hard, but again, you have to climb really well, and it takes some more time to place gear, so your legs get more tired, and then it's harder to climb the cracks, which is about 5 meters from the ground, maybe a little bit more, and it's these really like powerful boulder problems on like side pulls and gas stones on really bad feet. Fuck! Fuck! Fuck, fuck, fuck! Ah! It's hard when you climb on it to find the right balance, because you somehow have to like push really hard with your feet, and somehow you also have to trust them, so it's hard to find the balance. Like if you push too hard and you get too tired, and sometimes you just slip off, and also like the other way around.
The feet are just terrible, and it creates a lot of tension in the low body to maintain like pressure on them, because any sort of like, you let off a little bit of weight on the foot and it slips, and if you add too much weight too quickly, it slips. Super cool. I love how like polished it is.
It's like glass.
I know, this wall especially is like super glassy. There's just this constant awareness while you're moving about how much pressure is on each foothold at what time, and it creates this really cool climbing experience where you're just super in tune with everything that's going on and every point of contact with the rock.
Rest day tomorrow.
It's a hard route, man.
It's a nice one.
Yeah, it is. Cool. That was good, man. You're close. Because you get to the flake, you've got a really good chance, you know? Yeah.
After it's pumpy as well.
It's pumpy, but I think you have a good shot, you know? You'll fight.
Yeah, you fight more.
Fight more. I've scoured Yosemite for new climbs for decades now, and it's really, really difficult to find, you know, pieces of rock that are like that, basically, that have enough features to put together like a full line. Or, you know, sometimes you'll get a little seam, but, you know, after 20, 30 feet, it kind of peters out and there's not really enough to take you to the top of the wall. Or it's just rare to have all of those pieces come together. And it seems kind of improbable that it actually works and that it actually climbs, but it does. And it's amazing because of that.
Schau mal da unten, weil mit dem Schuh, ich weiß nicht, wie das Start ist.
Allez, Jacopo. Geht hin. Allez, allez, geht hin. Allez. Geht. Sauber. Geht. Allez. Sauber. Vollgas. Geht. Allez, geht her. Right run.
The upper section is probably about like 8A routes. It's not crazy hard compared to the lower section, but it's bumpy because the feet are bad and you have to like place this blind nut, which it's important and it's hard to place. It adds some difficulty to the route. And once again, I remember that when I tried on TR, I was sure that once I will get to the flake, I will just like easily climbing to the top because I could do it quite easily on TR. But then I was really like fighting really hard. I almost fell, like placing the knot. And I had this like image in my mind of Beth, because like in the video of her ascent, she like falls once, like placing the knot. She placed the knot and like the knot falls off and she falls too. So I was like really had this image in my mind when I was there.
Jacopo, Ale, Olga, Kim, Ale, Pecha. Ale. Ja. Oh. Holy shit.
Ah! I had to fight really hard to climb through that section, which was nice because most of the time when you head point a hard route, like the actual sand go feels quite smooth. Like you have to invest a lot of time before, but then the actual sand normally feels good. And this time I had to fight super hard, which was even better because I think it's one of the routes that I will remember the most. And that was definitely one of the coolest experiences in my climbing career.
Jacopo, Ale, Olga, Kim, Ale, Pecha. Soy. Venga.
Ah!
Woo.
God!
Oi.
Oh! It's so fucking fun!
Woo.
I think for me, climbing is really linked to the places where I climb. So I want, to feel like in balance with the place I'm at. And Yosemite is definitely one of those places. To be honest, for me, it's really important to climb. Like I want to climb all the time. So I can climb like in shitty places too, just for the pleasure of climbing. But the moments I remember the most and like I'm more happy with are the ones that I spend like in beautiful places and trying, like lines that inspire me, like either because of their history or because of their beauty. And like in places like Yosemite, those climbs are normally like historical and beautiful. So it's like kind of the perfect place for me.
I mean, I'm so impressed with Jacopo and what he's doing. I mean, he's like constantly pushing the sport forward, which I think is really rare for like a singular person to keep doing. And obviously like you get that in certain regards with sport climbing and with bouldering, but to be so well-rounded and to continually push it forward, it's really inspiring.
Yeah, for quite a few years, Jacopo is really psyched to try hard trad routes. So it's definitely, I think, one of his favorite styles in climbing, where he can motivate himself, I think, the most. Because it adds some mental challenge as well. It's not only about how hard a climb is, you also have to handle the fear, and also it's quite tricky sometimes to find the placements. It's all a bit more like a puzzle.
Yeah, I've always thought of him kind of as like the silent killer, you know? He's one of the most capable and talented rock climbers in the world, and he doesn't really like to talk about it much. He's very humble in how he presents that, and he's just been quietly ticking off everything, you know, in terms of all sorts of stuff that he's done. It's incredible. I mean, he's just for sure one of the most accomplished climbers all around out there.